You don't belong here! Your ticket is fake!
Pilot tears up black twins' tickets, and seconds later he discovers their father owns the airline. But what this 62-year-old captain with 34 years of flying experience did to two 12-year-olds in front of a gate full of witnesses will make you question whether some people's racism runs so deep they can't see children as human, only as threats that need to be eliminated from spaces they believe belong exclusively to white passengers. These tickets look fake. Where did you get these? I don't believe for 1 second that children like you have legitimate premium economy boarding passes. Captain Robert Sterling's voice carries across Gate B-17 at Denver International Airport, his 62 years of white privilege and 34 years of unchecked authority converging as he stands over 12-year-old twins Ethan and Emma Clarke, examining their boarding passes like a detective who's already decided they're guilty, his theatrical suspicion performing for an audience of boarding passengers who watch but don't defend. The words hit the twins like ice water. Ethan's hands start shaking as he processes being called a liar by a man in a pilot's uniform. Emma's eyes fill with tears, understanding that their spring break trip to see Aunt Renee is being threatened not because they did anything wrong but because a captain looked at two well-dressed black children in premium seats and decided something must be fraudulent, must be wrong, must require his intervention. Here's what people refuse to accept about racism in 2026. It's not museum pieces or historical footnotes. It's airline captains 3 months from retirement publicly humiliating children because their skin color doesn't match the captain's mental image of who belongs in premium economy. It's discrimination that's evolved beyond burning crosses into bureaucratic cruelty. Authority weaponized against the powerless, hatred dressed up as security concerns and procedure. And in some ways that makes it more insidious than the overt racism of previous generations because now it hides behind "I'm just doing my job and these tickets don't look right," bigotry masquerading as diligence, cruelty performing as competence. Ethan and Emma aren't surprised by Sterling's suspicion in the way their parents might hope. They're shocked, yes, because you're never fully prepared for an adult in authority to publicly question your legitimacy, to examine your documents like they're forgeries, to treat your existence in a space as evidence of fraud. But surprised? No, this is their third time flying alone this year and the second time crew has treated them with suspicion. The security guard who followed them through the airport bookstore, the restaurant hostess who asked if they could really afford the menu prices, each incident teaching them that being well-dressed and polite and legitimate doesn't protect black children from adults who've decided excellence in black skin must be theft or luck or mistake. Never earned, never deserved, never simply real. Our dad bought these tickets, sir. Ethan tries to keep his voice steady despite the fear and humiliation building. He's a businessman. He flies all the time. These are real tickets. The gate agent already scanned them and said they're fine. I don't care what the gate agent said. Sterling dismisses this with wave of his hand. I'm the captain of this aircraft. I make final determinations about who boards, and I'm telling you these boarding passes look counterfeit. The printing is off, the codes don't seem right, I've seen fake tickets before and these have all the hallmarks. But they scanned correctly. Emma's voice comes out small and scared. The machine beeped green, the gate lady smiled at us, she walked us onto the plane. How can they be fake if the computer accepted them? Paperwork can be forged, Sterling says with confidence born from never being challenged. Scanners can be fooled, systems can be hacked. Just because something scans doesn't mean it's legitimate, and I'm not about to risk my aircraft's security on questionable documents presented by unaccompanied minors who probably don't even understand what they're carrying. The assumption that 12-year-olds are too stupid to know their own boarding passes, the suggestion that their documentation is suspicious purely because they're black children without white adult supervision, racism performing its familiar routine of demanding extra proof, extra verification, extra justification that white passengers never provide because white passengers are presumed legitimate until proven otherwise while black passengers are presumed fraudulent until they can prove, definitively and repeatedly, that they belong. We're supposed to visit our Aunt Renee in Houston, Ethan explains, trying a different approach. She's a doctor, she's expecting us, we have all our paperwork, we're registered unaccompanied minors, everything was processed correctly at check-in. Your aunt can expect whoever she wants. Sterling's voice goes cold. These tickets are not boarding this aircraft. You two need to gather your belongings and exit immediately. I'm not delaying my flight for this situation. Other passengers boarding around them slow down to watch. Phones come out to record, not to intervene. Witnesses accumulating who will capture the humiliation but won't challenge the captain. Bystanders choosing viral content over defending children. Silence enabling what objection might stop. A white woman in her 50s, business traveler with platinum status bag tag, pauses near the confrontation. Is there a problem, Captain? She asks with concern that's directed at Sterling, not the children. Are these passengers causing an issue? Do you need assistance? Just some irregularities with documentation, Sterling says, playing to his audience. Nothing to worry about. I'm handling it. These young people will be off the aircraft shortly and will proceed with boarding. The casual dehumanization of calling 12-year-olds young people instead of children, the framing that positions their removal as solution not problem, the performance for other passengers that casts Sterling as protector and the twins as threat, racism operating in plain sight while describing itself as procedure. Please just let us call our dad, Emma begs, tears flowing now. He can explain everything, he can verify the tickets, he bought them himself. If you just give us 1 minute we can prove they're real. I don't have time for phone calls. Sterling pulls out his radio. Security to gate B17, I need assistance removing 2 passengers with fraudulent documentation. They're refusing to deplane voluntarily. We're not refusing, Ethan's voice cracks. We're trying to explain, we're trying to show you we're legitimate. Why won't you listen to us? Because listening to children costs captains nothing, but Sterling won't spend that nothing. Because believing black passengers requires effort Sterling won't expend. Because in his calculation 12-year-olds crying about spring break matter less than his authority, less than his schedule, less than his conviction that he knows fraud when he sees it, and these children are it. Then in a moment that will define the next 72 hours, in an action that can't be undone or walked back or explained away, Captain Robert Sterling takes both boarding passes and tears them in half, the ripping sound loud in the suddenly silent gate area, the physical destruction of legitimate documents caught on a dozen phones. But to understand how 2 12-year-old black twins ended up watching a pilot tear their boarding passes in half at a Denver airport gate, you need to know who Ethan and Emma Clarke really are, and more importantly you need to understand why this spring break trip represented everything their family built, everything their parents sacrificed to provide, everything racism tries to steal from black children who dare to travel with the same ease and entitlement white children take for granted. Ethan and Emma Clarke are 12 years old, 7th graders at Denver Academy, honor students who balance academics with soccer for Ethan and violin for Emma, twins who've been inseparable since birth, who finish each other's sentences and defend each other instinctively, who are polite and responsible and excited about their first solo trip this year. Spring break adventure to Houston to spend a week with their beloved Aunt Renee. They're the kind of children teachers praise in parent conferences, the kind of students who help younger kids in the hallway, the kind of siblings who bicker over small things but unite instantly against outside threats, normal 12-year-olds who happen to be black, which means their normalcy requires constant proof, their legitimacy demands repeated verification, their right to occupy space is always conditional on white approval. Their father Julian Clarke built SkyBridge Airlines from one leased plane into a 47-aircraft regional carrier over 20 years, starting as a pilot himself and growing the business through relentless work and strategic partnerships, creating a company that now employs 800 people and operates codeshare agreements with major carriers, success that's supposed to mean his children travel protected, that his wealth and achievement create bubble of safety, illusions about to be shattered at gate B17. Their mother, Dr. Simone Clarke, is a cardiothoracic surgeon at Denver General leading a clinical trial that's revolutionizing heart valve replacement, brilliant and dedicated, the kind of doctor who saves lives while raising children who know their mother is superhero in scrubs, who understand that when mom is in surgery she can't be reached, that her work literally keeps hearts beating, context that matters when trying to call for help becomes impossible. Aunt Renee is Simone's younger sister, pediatric surgeon who recently relocated to Houston, the cool aunt who sends funny texts and remembers every detail about the twins' lives, who promised them NASA tours and museum visits and a week of adventures that make spring break special, relationship that matters because it represents family bonds that racism is about to attack, vacation plans that discrimination is about to destroy. That morning Ethan and Emma woke early, excitement overriding the tendency to sleep in during school break, packing and repacking their carry-ons, debating what to bring, Emma insisting on her camera for NASA photos, Ethan wanting his soccer ball for park games with Aunt Renee, normal pre-trip energy that feels precious in retrospect knowing what's coming. Their mother drove them to Denver International, running through the checklist she always reviews when they fly alone, unaccompanied minor paperwork, emergency contact numbers, gate agent instructions, mom's surgical precision applied to parenting, making sure every detail is covered, every contingency planned for. Except the contingency where a pilot decides their legitimate tickets are fraudulent because their skin is wrong color for premium economy. Check-in went smoothly, the gate agent Melissa processing their unaccompanied minor documentation with cheerful efficiency, commenting on how mature they seemed, asking about their trip plans, treating them like the responsible preteens they are, human interaction that felt normal because it was normal, kindness that costs nothing but apparently some people refuse to spend. Security was routine, TSA agents waving them through pre-check, Emma's violin case requiring extra screening but handled professionally, the twins joking about how many times they've done this, how traveling alone makes them feel grown up, confidence that's about to be demolished by adult who sees their independence as suspicious rather than impressive. The gate area was typical spring break chaos, families with young children and college students heading to warm weather destinations, the twins finding seats and pulling out phones to text Aunt Renee their departure updates, normal pre-flight routine that should lead to normal boarding, to normal flight, to normal vacation, normalcy about to be destroyed by abnormal hatred. Boarding began and they walked down the jetway, found their premium economy seats 8A and 8B that their father specifically purchased because he believes his children deserve comfort, settled in with excitement about the flight and what waits in Houston, Emma already planning her NASA tour questions, Ethan mentally preparing for soccer games in Texas spring weather, childhood joy that hasn't yet learned to fear authority, innocence that's about to be stolen. Then Captain Robert Sterling conducts his pre-flight walkthrough, 62 years old with 34 years flying experience, 3 months from retirement, carrying 18 buried discrimination complaints that his seniority and union protection always dismissed, pattern of targeting passengers of color that nobody stopped because nobody in authority cared enough to stop it. Walking time bomb of racism finally about to explode in public where cameras can document what personnel files. Buried. He sees the twins, well-dressed black children sitting in premium economy without white adult supervision, and something in his prejudiced brain decides this requires investigation, that their presence itself constitutes irregularity, that they must be questioned and challenged and ultimately removed because in Sterling's worldview black children don't belong in premium cabins, don't deserve comfort their tickets paid for, don't have right to travel without proving worthiness white children. Never demonstrate. Captain Sterling stops in the aisle of row 8, his eyes locked on Ethan and Emma Clarke with the kind of scrutiny that makes the twins immediately uncomfortable, that particular adult stare that suggests they've done something wrong before they've done anything at all, authority examining them like specimens under microscope, finding them guilty of existing in space he believes they don't belong. Let me see your boarding passes. Sterling's voice carries that edge of command mixed with suspicion. Both of you, hand them over right now. Ethan and Emma exchange nervous glances, pull out their boarding passes from the seat pockets where they just tucked them moments ago, hand them to the captain with the automatic compliance children show authority figures, trusting that adults in uniforms know what they're doing, that this must be routine, that surely this examination will confirm what they already know, which is that everything is legitimate and correct. Sterling takes both passes, holds them up to the overhead light, examines them with theatrical intensity that draws attention from other boarding passengers, his face cycling through expressions of increasing skepticism, performing discovery of irregularity for an audience, building case against 12-year-olds who have no idea they're being tried and convicted in real time. These tickets look fake, Sterling announces loud enough for multiple rows to hear. Where did you get these? How did you obtain premium economy boarding passes? Who gave them to you? The questions land like accusations, the assumption built into every word that the twins couldn't have acquired these tickets legitimately, that their possession of premium seats requires explanation white children never provide, that something criminal or fraudulent must explain their presence. Our dad bought them, sir, Emma says politely, her 12-year-old voice showing confusion about why this is even a question. He purchased them online. They came to our email. We checked in this morning. The gate lady said everything was fine. Your dad bought premium economy tickets for 2 unaccompanied minors. Sterling's tone drips with disbelief. That seems unlikely. These seats are expensive. Most parents don't spend this kind of money on children traveling alone. Where does your father work that he can afford tickets like these? The invasive questioning, the demand that black children justify their father's financial decisions, the assumption that premium travel for black families requires documentation and explanation, microaggression performing as security protocol, racism dressed in uniform. He's a businessman, Ethan answers, trying to sound confident despite growing fear. He travels a lot. He wanted us to be comfortable flying to Houston. Why does it matter how he affords tickets? They're real tickets. They scanned at the gate. Paperwork can be forged. Sterling dismisses this with a wave. Scanning systems can be fooled. Tickets can be counterfeited. I've been flying for 34 years and I know what legitimate documentation looks like. These don't look right to me. He holds the boarding passes up again, points at elements that look perfectly normal to everyone watching. The printing quality seems off. The barcode looks suspicious. The seat assignments don't match the typical pattern for unaccompanied minors. There are irregularities here that concern me. Everything he's saying is fabricated, invented objections that exist only in his prejudiced imagination, but he says it with such authority that some passengers start nodding, accepting that the captain must know what he's talking about, that children this young probably are involved in some kind of ticket fraud, racism, finding validation in witnesses who want to believe authority over evidence. Those tickets are real. A voice comes from behind them. The gate agent Melissa has followed the commotion onto the aircraft, her face showing she knows exactly what's happening, that she's seen Sterling do this before. I processed those children myself 20 minutes ago. Their tickets scanned perfectly. Their unaccompanied minor paperwork is complete and correct. There is nothing irregular about their boarding passes. With all due respect, Sterling turns his authority on her now. I'm the captain of this aircraft. I have final say over who boards, and I'm telling you these tickets don't look legitimate. The children's story doesn't add up. I'm not comfortable proceeding with them on board. Their story is that their father bought them tickets. Melissa's voice stays professional but firm. That's not a story. That's how tickets work. Parents purchase them for children. That's completely normal. You're creating a problem where none exists. I'm identifying a security concern. Sterling's face flushes with anger at being challenged. You did your job at the gate. Now I'm doing mine on board. These tickets are suspicious and I'm exercising my authority to deny boarding. Ethan feels his throat tightening, understands that something very wrong is happening, that this isn't routine security check but something else, something ugly, something targeting them specifically, 12 years old and learning that being right doesn't protect you when authority decides you're wrong. Please, sir, Ethan tries one more time. Just call our dad. He can verify everything. He can explain the tickets. His number is on our paperwork. You can talk to him directly. I don't need to call anyone. Sterling's voice goes cold with finality. I need you two to gather your belongings. Exit this aircraft immediately. You are not flying today. Emma starts crying, the kind of tears that come from confusion mixed with humiliation, from understanding that their spring break is being destroyed but not understanding why, from the injustice of being punished for nothing, 12-year-old tears that should move adults to protection but instead seem to confirm Sterling's conviction that something is wrong with these children. But we have to get to Houston, Emma manages through sobs. Our Aunt Renee is expecting us. We planned this trip for months. We didn't do anything wrong. Why are you being so mean? I'm not being mean, Sterling says with the particular cruelty of people who inflict harm while denying they're inflicting it. I'm being thorough. I'm protecting this aircraft and its passengers. I'm doing my job even when it's difficult, even when people don't understand. Other passengers watch this confrontation, some with sympathy, others with suspicion directed at the twins. Phones come out to record but not to defend, witnesses accumulating who will document but not intervene, silence enabling what objection might prevent. A black woman in row 10, businesswoman in her 40s, stands up. Captain, this is wrong, she says firmly. Those children have done nothing to warrant this treatment. Their tickets are valid. You're humiliating them for no reason. This needs to stop. "Ma'am, sit down," Sterling snaps at her. "This doesn't concern you. Interfering with flight crew is a federal offense. Return to your seat immediately." The woman hesitates, wanting to do more but afraid of being removed herself. Another potential ally silenced by threat of consequences. Another witness choosing self-preservation over solidarity. Guilt she'll carry but action she won't take. Then Sterling does the thing that can't be undone. The action that will define the next 72 hours and destroy his 34-year career. Takes both boarding passes and deliberately tears them in half. The ripping sound loud and final. The sound of tearing paper echoes through the jetway, passengers going silent as they watch Captain Sterling rip the boarding passes in half, then quarters, the deliberate destruction of legitimate documents shocking in its finality, its cruelty, its absolute disregard for two children watching their spring break vacation being literally torn apart in front of them. "Gather your belongings and exit this aircraft." Sterling holds up the shredded pieces like evidence of his authority. "You are not flying today. These tickets are invalid. You need to leave immediately before I have security remove you." "You just destroyed our tickets?" Ethan's voice comes out stunned and hollow. "Those were real. You had no right to do that. How are we supposed to fly now? How do we get to Houston?" "That's not my problem." Sterling drops the torn pieces into Ethan's hand like trash. "You should have had legitimate documentation. You should have been honest about how you obtained these seats. Now you need to leave before the situation escalates further." Emma is sobbing openly now, her 12-year-old body shaking with the kind of crying that comes from the bottom of your soul, from injustice so profound you can't process it, from watching an adult abuse power while other adults stand by and let it happen, from understanding that everything you were excited about is gone and there's nothing you can do to fix it. "Please, we're telling the truth," Emma manages through tears. "Our dad really did buy those tickets. We weren't lying. Why won't you believe us? What did we do wrong?" The question hangs in the air unanswered because Sterling can't answer it honestly, can't say that what they did wrong was exist as black children in premium economy, can't admit that their crime was not matching his mental image of who belongs in those seats, can't confess that he destroyed their documentation because his racism demanded it. Melissa, the gate agent, stands frozen, her training and her conscience at war, knowing she should defend these children but also knowing that challenging a captain can cost her job, that unions protect pilots while gate agents are expendable, that speaking up might mean she joins the twins in being removed, institutional power dynamics silencing the very people who should provide protection. "You two need to come with me," Melissa finally says, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "Let's go back to the gate. We'll figure this out there. Just please get your things and follow me." "But our seats," Ethan looks at the premium economy seats they never got to sit in. "Our bags are in the overhead. Our stuff is here. We were supposed to fly. We have to get to Aunt Renee." "Your belongings will be retrieved," Sterling says impatiently. "You can collect them at the gate, but you cannot remain on this aircraft. I've made my decision and it's final. Now move." The twins gather their carry-ons with shaking hands, Emma clutching her violin case like it's the only solid thing in a world that just revealed itself as arbitrary and cruel, Ethan's jaw tight as he tries not to cry in front of everyone, tries to maintain some dignity while being publicly humiliated, 12-year-old trying to be brave when he should be allowed to be child. They walk back up the jetway, past passengers who watch with expressions ranging from pity to discomfort to approval, past the businessman who nods at Sterling like he did good work, past the college students who record on their phones but say nothing, past everyone who could have defended them but chose silence, witnesses to injustice who will go home and tell the story like they were helpless observers when they were actually complicit participants. The gate area feels different now. What was exciting departure point has become scene of humiliation, other passengers staring at the twins with curiosity and judgment, wondering what those kids did to get kicked off a flight, assuming guilt because why else would a captain remove them, racism finding validation in crowds that trust authority over evidence. Melissa leads them to seats away from the main boarding area, her face showing she knows this is wrong but doesn't know how to make it right. "I'm going to call my supervisor," she says quietly. "I'm going to try to get this sorted out. Your tickets were completely valid. I don't know why the captain did that." "Because we're black," Ethan says with the bitter clarity of a 12-year-old who just had his innocence destroyed. "That's why he did it. Because he saw two black kids in premium economy and decided we didn't belong there. That's the only reason. There's no other explanation." The words hit Melissa like accusation because they are accusation, indictment of system she's part of airline culture that gives captains unchecked authority, of discrimination that hides behind procedure while performing cruelty, truth spoken by child who shouldn't have to understand racism this intimately but does because racism just taught him a lesson he'll never forget. Let me try calling your parents, Melissa suggests. Maybe they can help resolve this. Maybe they can speak to the airline directly. Do you have their numbers? Ethan pulls out his phone with hands that won't stop shaking, dials his father's number, the call going straight to busy signal because 3 time zones away Julian Clarke sits in a conference room negotiating a merger that will grow his airline by 30%, his phone silenced because this meeting matters, unaware that while he builds his company his children are being destroyed at a gate. He's not answering. Ethan tries again with same result. He must be in his meeting. He said it would take all morning. He made us promise not to call unless it was emergency. This is an emergency, Emma says through tears. This is definitely an emergency. Try mom, maybe she can help. Ethan dials his mother, the call ringing through to Dr. Simone Clarke's phone sitting in a locker outside an operating room where she's currently performing surgery, where she's literally holding someone's heart in her hands, unreachable, unavailable, unable to rescue her children from racism that doesn't pause for emergencies. She's not answering either. Ethan's voice breaks completely now. She's in surgery. She always turns her phone off. We can't reach mom or dad. We're stuck here. Our tickets are destroyed. We can't get to Houston. Try your aunt, Melissa suggests. Maybe she can help from Houston. Maybe she can call the airline. Maybe there's something she can do. Emma dials Aunt Renee, the call going to voicemail because Renee is in her own surgery at Houston Children's Hospital, 3 pediatric surgeons in one family and all of them unreachable when their children and niece and nephew need them most. The particular nightmare of being 12 and in crisis with no adult to help. Nobody's answering. Emma sobs. We can't reach anyone. We're alone. Our spring break is ruined. We're never going to see Aunt Renee. Everything is destroyed. If you've ever watched children be punished for the crime of existing while black, if you've ever seen authority abuse power while witnesses stay silent, this moment should break your heart and make you question what kind of society produces Captain Sterlings and protects them for 34 years while bearing 18 complaints. Subscribe if you believe no child should have their vacation destroyed by racism masquerading as security concerns. Like this video if you think witnesses have responsibility to defend, not just document, because what happens in the next 45 minutes will show you that sometimes the only thing protecting children from discrimination is parents with power and resources most families don't have. The minutes crawl by, other flights boarding and departing, the airport continuing its normal rhythm while Ethan and Emma sit crying in a gate area watching their plane prepare to leave without them, watching Sterling walk back onto the aircraft like he did nothing wrong, watching their spring break evaporate because a captain decided their skin color meant their tickets must be fake. 20 minutes pass and the twins sit in the gate area watching their flight prepare for departure. The boarding doors still open but might as well be sealed shut for how accessible it is to them now, their destroyed boarding passes sitting in pieces in Ethan's pocket, physical evidence of discrimination they'll carry home, proof that racism doesn't need reason beyond the reason of race itself. Melissa has called her supervisor twice, each conversation growing more heated, her voice strained as she explains that a captain tore up legitimate tickets and removed children who had done nothing wrong, that she scanned the boarding passes herself, that everything was processed correctly, that this is discrimination not security, but supervisors defer to captains, unions protect pilots, systems preserve hierarchy even when hierarchy enables cruelty. They're saying it's the captain's discretion, Melissa finally admits, her face showing she hates delivering this news. They're saying he has authority to deny boarding if he believes documentation is questionable. They're saying his judgment supersedes gate agent verification. I'm so sorry, I don't know what else to do. His judgment is racist, Ethan says flatly, 12 years old and learning vocabulary that should stay theoretical, not become lived experience. He looked at us, decided we didn't belong in premium economy, made up reasons our tickets were fake. There's no other explanation. This is discrimination. I know, Melissa whispers, looking around to make sure no airline management hears her agreeing. I know it is. I've seen him do this before. There are complaints in his file, but he's 3 months from retirement and the union protects him. Nobody wants to fight this fight when he's almost gone anyway. The admission that airlines tolerate discrimination because dealing with it is inconvenient, that Sterling's retirement timeline matters more than the twins' civil rights, that institutional self-preservation trumps passenger protection, truth spoken quietly because speaking it loudly costs jobs. Emma has stopped crying from exhaustion, not comfort, her face blotchy and swollen, her violin case clutched in her lap like security blanket, 12-year-old who woke up excited about spring break now sitting in airport limbo watching that excitement turn to ashes, childhood joy murdered by adult hatred. What are we going to tell Aunt Renee? Emma asks nobody in particular. She took the whole week off work, she planned all these activities, she was so excited to see us. What do we say when we don't show up? The question breaks Ethan's heart because he's the older twin by 7 minutes. The one who's supposed to have answers, who's supposed to protect Emma, who's supposed to make things okay, but he has no answers for racism, no protection against authority that weaponizes power, no way to make this okay when it's so fundamentally not okay. We'll tell her the truth, Ethan says, his voice hollow. We'll tell her a racist pilot destroyed our tickets and kicked us off the plane. We'll tell her we tried to call mom and dad but couldn't reach them. We'll tell her that being black in premium economy was enough to make him decide we were criminals. Other passengers in the gate area occasionally glance at the twins, some with pity, others with curiosity, none asking if they're okay, none offering help, the usual airport self-absorption amplified by discomfort around distressed black children, easier to pretend not to notice than to engage with suffering you didn't cause but benefited from by not being targeted yourself. A white family with 3 children boards a different flight at the adjacent gate, the kids roughly the same age as the twins, traveling unaccompanied based on the lanyards they wear, premium economy tags on their carry-ons, nobody questions their tickets, nobody demands documentation, nobody tears up their boarding passes, the casual ease of white children traveling unmolested making the twins' treatment even more stark by contrast. Do you see that? Emma points at the other kids boarding. They're flying alone just like us, they're probably the same age, nobody's questioning them, nobody's making them prove their tickets are real. Why do we have to prove things they just get to assume? Because the world works differently for us, Ethan says with the weariness of someone much older. Because we're black and they're white. Because our legitimacy requires proof while theirs is presumed. Because racism doesn't need to make sense to do damage. The flight that was supposed to carry them to Houston begins final boarding. Last calls announced over the intercom, Sterling visible through the jetway window doing his final cockpit prep. The plane about to depart with empty premium economy seats 8A and 8B, spaces the twins paid for but will never occupy, vacation they earned but won't experience. They're really leaving without us, Emma's voice cracks with fresh tears. The plane is actually going to take off, we're actually not going to Houston, this is really happening, it's not a nightmare we can wake up from. Ethan tries his father again, desperate now, the call still going to busy signal, Julian's merger meeting running long, his phone silenced, his children's distress unable to penetrate his business focus, the terrible timing that means rescue isn't coming, that they're alone in this crisis, that 12-year-olds have to navigate adult racism without adult support. He tries his mother again, same result, Simone's surgery complex and delicate, her phone powered off, her healing hands unable to help her own children, the irony bitter that both parents chose professions helping others, built success helping others, but can't help their own kids in this moment. What do we do? Emma asks, the question every 12-year-old in crisis asks, the question that shouldn't need asking because adults should provide answers, should provide protection, should provide solutions, but the adults who could help are unreachable and the adults who are present either cause the harm or won't stop it. We keep trying to reach Dad, Ethan decides, clinging to the belief that their father can fix this. When he finds out what happened he'll do something, he owns an airline, he has connections, he'll make this right, we just have to wait until he sees our calls. The faith children have in parents, the belief that dads can solve anything, that authority and power can be leveraged for justice. Faith about to be tested in ways that will reshape their understanding of what protection means, of what power can and cannot do, of what scars remain even after rescue arrives. 45 minutes after Sterling tore their tickets, after he ordered them off the plane, after he destroyed their spring break with casual cruelty, the aircraft door finally closes, the jetway pulls back, the plane pushes away from the gate, departing on time despite the drama, leaving the twins watching from windows as their flight to Houston becomes impossibility, as premium economy seats 8A and 8B remain empty, as Captain Sterling sits in the cockpit feeling vindicated in his discrimination, believing his authority was properly exercised, believing he protected his aircraft from suspicious passengers, believing the story he told himself about why those tickets looked fake. Racism so deeply internalized he genuinely thinks he was right. The plane disappears from view, taxiing toward the runway, carrying away the last physical connection to the spring break the twins planned for months, the NASA tours and museum visits and precious time with Aunt Renee evaporating into jet fuel exhaust, 12-year-old dreams destroyed by 62-year-old racism that Sterling will probably never acknowledge, never understand, never accept responsibility for inflicting. Melissa has run out of options and excuses, her supervisor making clear that without captain cooperation there's nothing gate agents can do, that Sterling's authority is absolute within his aircraft, that the airline will not override pilot discretion even when that discretion is clearly discriminatory, institutional protection of hierarchy mattering more than protection of children, systems choosing stability over justice. I can try to get you on another flight, Melissa offers weakly. There's a Denver to Houston departure tonight at 8 p.m. It's not premium economy, but I could potentially get you seats. It wouldn't get you there until late, but at least you'd make it eventually. Our tickets were for this morning, Ethan says, his voice flat with exhaustion. Aunt Renee is expecting us for lunch. We were supposed to have the whole day. Now we've lost half our vacation, and our dad paid for premium economy that we never got to use. Why should we accept worse seats on a later flight? The questions are rhetorical, but Melissa answers anyway, her training kicking in despite knowing nothing she says will make this better. I understand your frustration. I'm trying to find solutions within the limitations I have. The airline won't refund destroyed tickets until an investigation happens. That could take weeks. I'm just trying to get you to Houston somehow. What happens to Captain Sterling? Emma asks quietly. Does he get in trouble for this? Does anyone even care that he destroyed our vacation? Or does he just fly away and forget we exist? Melissa's silence answers more honestly than words could, the admission that Sterling faces no immediate consequences, that his union will protect him, that the airline's legal department will circle wagons, that discrimination complaints disappear into bureaucratic procedures that protect perpetrators while exhausting victims, that justice delayed is justice denied and delay is built into every system. Someone should call our dad, Ethan says suddenly, the idea crystallizing through his distress. Not us calling him, someone from the airline, someone official. He needs to know what happened. He needs to know that his tickets were torn up and his kids were humiliated. I can file a report, Melissa offers. That will generate a case number, create documentation, eventually reach customer service. But that process takes time. It won't happen today. It won't help you get to Houston now. Then we'll tell him ourselves, Ethan decides, his hands shaking as he dials his father again. We'll keep calling until he answers, until his meeting ends, until he picks up and we can tell him everything. He'll know what to do. The call goes to busy signal again. Julian still unreachable in Seattle, his merger meeting running over, his phone silenced, his children's desperation unable to penetrate his professional focus, the terrible lottery of timing that means rescue is delayed, that suffering continues, that 12-year-olds sit abandoned in an airport watching their vacation die. I'm hungry, Emma says suddenly, the mundane need intruding on crisis. We were supposed to get breakfast on the plane. We were supposed to be in Houston by now eating lunch with Aunt Renee. Instead we're stuck here and I'm hungry and everything hurts. The admission that trauma doesn't pause for physical needs, that 12-year-old bodies still require food even when 12-year-old hearts are breaking, that life's basic requirements continue even when life itself feels fundamentally unfair, the particular cruelty of needing to eat while crying, of hunger mixing with grief. Let me get you something, Melissa offers, grateful for concrete problems she can solve. What do you want? My treat? Least I can do after what you've been through. We don't want your food, Ethan says, not meanly but firmly. We want justice. We want Captain Sterling held accountable. We want our spring break back. Can you give us any of those things? The question hangs unanswered because the answer is no. Melissa can't give them justice or accountability or their vacation. She can only offer airport snacks and platitudes, band-aids on bullet wounds, comfort that costs her nothing and means less. Other flights board and depart around them. Families heading to spring break destinations, children excited about vacations they'll actually experience, the normal flow of travel continuing while the twins sit frozen in crisis, watching the world move forward while their world stops, isolation in the middle of crowds, abandonment in public space. A janitor empties nearby trash cans, an older black man who's seen enough airport drama to recognize suffering when he sees it, pauses by the twins with expression showing he knows their story without needing explanation, knowing that look on young black faces, the particular defeat that comes from running into racism and having no power to fight back. "Y'all okay?" the janitor asks quietly. "Y'all need somebody to call, somewhere to go, something to help?" His kindness breaks Emma's fragile composure, the simple human concern from a stranger meaning more than all of Melissa's professional sympathy, the recognition from someone who understands what it means to be black in spaces that treat blackness as suspicious, the solidarity that costs him nothing but means everything. "We're trying to reach our dad," Emma manages through fresh tears. "A pilot tore up our tickets, said they were fake, kicked us off the plane, now we can't get to Houston, we can't reach our parents, we're just stuck here waiting." The janitor's face hardens with recognition and rage, the story familiar because he's lived versions of it, because his grandchildren have faced similar discrimination, because racism is exhausting in its repetition, in its refusal to die, in its ability to find new victims every generation. "That pilot's name's Sterling," the janitor asks. "White guy, 60s, acts like he owns the place, treats black folks like we don't belong here." "Yes," Ethan confirms. "You know him, has he done this before?" "Done it and gotten away with it," the janitor says grimly. "Got complaints going back years. Union always protects him, Airline always looks the other way, he retires in 3 months and probably gets a party for his service. Meanwhile kids like you get traumatized and nothing changes." The confirmation that this isn't isolated incident but pattern of behavior, that Sterling has destroyed other vacations, humiliated other families, wielded racism repeatedly while institutions shrugged, that the twins are just latest victims in a long line. The particular pain of knowing you're not special, that your suffering isn't unique, that the system failed you the same way it failed countless others. "Keep calling your daddy," the janitor advises. "Don't stop trying, don't give up. Sometimes the only way we get justice is when we got somebody with power who loves us enough to use it. You hear me, keep calling." He walks away pushing his cart, leaving the twins with advice born from hard experience, from understanding that justice requires power, that power requires resources, that resources divide along racial lines, that the twins' only hope is that their father has enough of what most black families lack, which is authority that airlines respect. 68 minutes after Captain Sterling tore up their boarding passes, after he destroyed their spring break with theatrical cruelty, after he returned to his cockpit feeling vindicated in discrimination he'll never acknowledge, Julian Clarke's merger meeting finally ends in Seattle. Handshakes and congratulations exchanged. His company about to grow by 30%. Business success that feels meaningful until he pulls his phone from his pocket and sees the notifications that will reshape the next 72 hours. 23 missed calls from Ethan, 17 from Emma, 12 voicemails building from confusion to panic to desperation, text messages that escalate from "Dad call us" to "Dad emergency" to "Dad please we need you." The digital breadcrumbs of children in crisis trying desperately to reach a father whose phone was silenced because business mattered, whose attention was elsewhere because he trusted the world to treat his children with basic decency. Julian's hands start shaking as he processes what he's seeing, the volume of calls suggesting catastrophe, his mind racing through possibilities, accident or illness or something worse, father panic flooding his businessman calm, every parent's nightmare condensed into notification screen showing his children needed him and he wasn't available. He steps out of the conference room into the hallway, dials Ethan with hands that won't quite steady, the phone ringing once before his son answers, Ethan's voice coming through broken and desperate. "Dad, oh God, Dad, finally, we've been trying to reach you for over an hour, something terrible happened." "What's wrong?" Julian's voice goes into crisis mode, calm but urgent. "Are you hurt? Is Emma hurt? Where are you? What happened?" "We're still in Denver," Ethan's words tumble out between sobs. We never made it to Houston. A pilot tore up our tickets, Dad. He said they were fake. He said we were lying. He kicked us off the plane. He destroyed our boarding passes right in front of everyone. Julian goes completely still. The kind of stillness that comes before storms, before fury, before consequences that will reshape lives. He did what? His voice drops to barely controlled rage. A pilot tore up your tickets? Start from the beginning. Tell me everything, every detail. Ethan recounts the story through tears, Sterling's suspicion, the theatrical examination, the accusations of fraud, the dismissal of explanations, the gate agent's confirmation ignored, the public humiliation, the tearing of legitimate documents, the order to exit, the 45 minutes of trying unsuccessfully to reach parents, the spring break evaporating, the devastation of watching their plane depart without them. Emma takes the phone, her voice small and broken. Dad, he looked at us like we were criminals. He treated us like we didn't belong there. He said our tickets couldn't be real because kids like us don't fly premium economy. He made us feel like being black was evidence of fraud. The words hit Julian like physical blows, his daughter's pain transmitted through cellular signals, her innocence murdered by racism he thought his success could protect her from, the bitter lesson that no amount of achievement shields black children from adults who decide their existence requires explanation. Their legitimacy demands proof, their presence constitutes problem. What's the pilot's name? Julian asks, his voice ice cold now, fury crystallized into purpose. What airline? What flight number? I need details, I need everything. Captain Robert Sterling, Ethan provides. Flight 2847, Denver to Houston, operated by Western Regional, but it had a SkyBridge codeshare number. That's your airline, Dad. That's your codeshare agreement he was flying under. The information lands with particular weight, understanding that Sterling destroyed Julian's children while operating under Julian's airline, while representing Julian's brand, while using partnership that Julian negotiated, the personal violation mixing with professional betrayal, father rage combining with CEO authority. Stay where you are, Julian says with certainty born from power about to be exercised. Don't move from that gate. I'm going to fix this. I promise you both that man will face consequences. Give me 10 minutes. He hangs up, immediately dials SkyBridge Operations Control, his assistant director of flight operations answering on first ring. This is Julian Clarke. I need information immediately about codeshare flight 2847 Denver to Houston operated by Western Regional this morning. Who's the captain? What's his contact information? I need his direct line now. So that flight departed on schedule? The operations director confirms, pulling up records. Captain Robert Sterling, 34-year veteran with Western, he's currently airborne over Kansas. His cell phone number is in our emergency contact database. Is there a problem? There's a massive problem. Julian's voice carries weight that makes the operations director sit straighter. That captain just racially discriminated against my children, tore up their legitimate tickets, removed them from the aircraft. I'm about to call him directly and I need you to document everything I'm telling you. This is about to become a major incident. Your children, sir. The operations director's voice shows shock. Mr. Clarke, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. What do you need from us? How can we help? Get me Sterling's number, Julian says. Then pull his entire employment file, every complaint, every incident, everything Western Regional has on him. I want documentation ready when this explodes. I want evidence that this was an isolated incident but pattern of behavior. The number comes through within seconds, Julian staring at it on his screen, 10 digits that represent access to the man who hurt his children, who humiliated them publicly, who destroyed their vacation with casual cruelty, who needs to understand that the kids he targeted weren't powerless, that their father has resources and authority and rage that's about to reshape Sterling's entire existence. Julian takes a breath, centers himself, channels his fury into the cold calculation that built his airline, that turned one plane into 47, that made him the kind of businessman who doesn't threaten consequences but delivers them, then dials Captain Sterling's cell phone. The phone rings twice, 3 times, Julian imagining Sterling in the cockpit, probably pleased with himself for removing those suspicious passengers, probably feeling vindicated in his discrimination, probably having already forgotten 2 children whose vacation he destroyed, probably never considering that actions have consequences and consequences are about to arrive. Captain Sterling, the voice answers casually, Professionally, the tone of someone expecting routine communication, someone who has no idea his world is about to end. Captain Sterling, this is Julian Clarke. Julian's voice is ice and steel combined. I own SkyBridge Airlines, the carrier whose codeshare agreement you're currently operating under. You just tore up my children's tickets and removed them from your aircraft because you decided two well-dressed black 12-year-olds with legitimate documentation must be frauds. Explain yourself, now. Complete silence on the line, the kind of silence that comes when reality crashes through assumptions, when authority meets greater authority, when consequences arrive unexpected and undeniable. Sterling's breathing audible but words absent, his brain processing information that doesn't compute, that can't be real, that means everything he just did was career suicide. Mr. Clarke, Sterling's voice comes out strangled, disbelieving. The children, they didn't, I thought. You thought two black children couldn't possibly have legitimate premium economy tickets? Julian interrupts, his fury barely controlled. You thought their father must be lying or poor or fraudulent? You thought your racism was security protocol? You thought wrong, those were my children, those tickets were purchased by me, that vacation you destroyed was planned by their mother and aunt, and your 34-year career just ended. Sir, I can explain. Sterling tries, panic audible now. The tickets looked suspicious. I was following procedure. I was protecting the aircraft. I had reason to believe. You had racism masquerading as reason. Julian cuts him off. You had prejudice performing as security. You had discrimination you'll spend the rest of your life denying because men like you never admit what you are. But I have witnesses, I have video, I have my children's testimony, and I have the authority to ensure you never fly again. Then something happens that nobody expected, that changes the trajectory of consequences, that transforms this from confrontation into medical emergency. Sterling makes a choking sound, a gasp that's not breathing, his phone clattering, voices in the cockpit suddenly urgent, co-pilot shouting, Captain, can you hear me? Julian hears chaos through the phone line, Sterling's labored breathing becoming gasps, becoming silence, the co-pilot's voice escalating from concern to alarm. Mayday, mayday, this is Flight 2847 declaring medical emergency. Captain is unresponsive, requesting immediate priority landing. The line goes dead, leaving Julian standing in a Seattle hotel hallway holding his phone, adrenaline still pumping from confrontation that just transformed into something else entirely, fury mixing with confusion, vindication tangled with unexpected concern, the realization that his words just triggered cardiac event in a 62-year-old man who was 3 months from retirement. He calls SkyBridge Operations back, his operations director already aware of the emergency. So we're tracking 2847, they're diverting to Kansas City, Captain suffered what appears to be cardiac arrest, paramedics standing by, the co-pilot has control of the aircraft, passengers are safe. What about my children? Julian asks, the question that matters most. Are they being taken care of? Does anyone at Denver know what's happening? Are they still alone at that gate? I'll contact Denver immediately, the operations director promises. We'll get gate agents to your children, we'll make sure they're not alone. Mr. Clarke, I'm so sorry this happened. I'm sorry our codeshare partner failed your family this badly. Julian books the next flight to Denver, cancels his afternoon meetings, calls his wife who's just getting out of surgery, delivers the news that will devastate her. Simone, our babies were racially profiled, kicked off their flight. They've been alone at the airport for over an hour. I'm flying to Denver now. You need to get there as soon as you can. Dr. Simone Clarke's response is immediate, surgical precision applied to crisis management. I'm leaving the hospital now. I'll be at the airport in 40 minutes. What happened? Who did this? Are they physically okay? They're not hurt, but they're traumatized, Julian explains while rushing to catch his flight. A captain named Sterling tore up their tickets, claimed they were fake, publicly humiliated them. I just confronted him and he had a heart attack. Simone, he collapsed in the cockpit. The flight diverted. This is a disaster on multiple levels. Good, Simone says with the cold rage of a mother whose children were hurt. I hope he survives so he can face consequences. I hope he lives to lose everything. Fly safe, I'll be with our babies soon. Flight 2847 makes emergency landing in Kansas City 14 minutes later, paramedics boarding immediately, Sterling unconscious and unresponsive, his face gray, his pulse barely detectable, Cardiac arrest triggered by shock and panic, by the sudden understanding that the children he discriminated against had father with power to destroy him, by consequences arriving when he thought he was untouchable. The co-pilot gives a statement to airline officials and FBI agents who board to investigate, explains that Sterling received a phone call moments before collapsing, that he heard Sterling's voice change from casual to panicked, that he heard the words "your career just ended" before the captain made choking sounds and lost consciousness, evidence that will matter in investigations to come. Sterling is rushed to University of Kansas Medical Center, his condition critical, doctors working to stabilize him, to restart a heart that stopped from terror more than exertion, from psychological shock that manifested as physiological crisis, from the particular stress of a racist facing accountability for the first time in 34 years. In Denver, Simone Clarke arrives at the airport 73 minutes after Ethan's first call, finds her children exactly where Melissa left them, Ethan and Emma exhausted from crying, from calling, from waiting, from experiencing discrimination that their parents' success was supposed to protect them from but didn't. From learning that being black means vulnerability even when your father owns airlines and your mother saves lives. "Mom," they say simultaneously, collapsing into her arms, 12-year-old bodies shaking with relief and residual trauma, safe now but changed forever, the airport gate becoming the place where they learn that excellence doesn't shield you, that achievement doesn't protect you, that racism targets children with the same casual cruelty it targets anyone who fails to perform whiteness. "Tell me everything," Simone says, holding both her children, examining them with surgeon's eyes for physical damage while understanding the psychological wounds run deeper. "Tell me exactly what he said, exactly what he did. I need to know so I can make sure he pays for every moment he made you suffer." The twins recount their story again, their mother's face growing harder with each detail, the torn tickets, the accusations of fraud, the public humiliation, the 45 minutes of abandonment, pediatric surgeon who spends her days protecting children unable to protect her own, civil rights attorney's wife watching her family experience the discrimination her husband fights professionally. "Where is he now?" Simone asks with dangerous calm. "Where is Captain Sterling? I want to know where he is, what's happening to him, what consequences he's facing." "He collapsed," Ethan explains. "When Dad called him and told him who we were, when Dad said his career was over, he had a heart attack or something, his flight had to make an emergency landing, we heard it on the gate announcements." The information lands with complex emotions, satisfaction that Sterling faced immediate consequence mixed with frustration that his medical emergency might complicate legal accountability, might generate sympathy he doesn't deserve, might transform him from perpetrator into victim in public perception. Julian lands in Denver 2 hours later, having chartered a faster plane when commercial options proved too slow, reunites with his family in the airport, holds his children with the particular fierceness of a father who failed to protect them, who was unreachable when they needed him, who let business matter more than availability, guilt mixing with rage, relief mixing with determination. "We're going home," Julian decides. "We're going to pack, we're going to rest, and tomorrow I'm flying you to Houston myself on our company plane. You're not losing your spring break, Aunt Renee is expecting you and you're going to see her, Sterling doesn't get to steal that from you." But the damage is done, the twins' excitement replaced by exhaustion, their joy poisoned by discrimination, their spring break already compromised even if they eventually make it to Houston, childhood innocence murdered in an airport gate by adult racism that targeted them for the crime of existing while black in premium economy. That night while the twins sleep fitfully in their own beds, while nightmares replay Sterling's accusations and the tearing of tickets, while trauma processes in 12-year-old brains that shouldn't have to understand racism this intimately, Captain Robert Sterling wakes up in a Kansas City hospital room after 3 days of medically induced coma, his career destroyed, his pension in jeopardy, his life fundamentally altered by phone call that revealed consequences, by children who turned out to have powerful father, by racism that finally cost more than he could afford to pay. Captain Robert Sterling opens his eyes 3 days after his cardiac arrest to find he's no longer in his cockpit but in a hospital room, no longer employed but terminated, no longer 3 months from comfortable retirement but facing financial ruin and public disgrace. The 72 hours he was unconscious having fundamentally reshaped his life in ways he's only beginning to understand. Standing beside his hospital bed is Margaret Chen, Western Regional Airlines Director of Human Resources, holding a folder that contains Sterling's employment file, 34 years of service reduced to documentation of patterns ignored, complaints buried, discrimination enabled, the evidence that will justify what happens next. "Mr. Sterling, I'm glad you're awake," Margaret says without warmth or sympathy. "We need to discuss your employment status, the incident involving the Clarke children, and the immediate termination of your contract with Western Regional effective the moment you collapsed." "Termination?" Sterling's voice comes out weak and confused. "I had a heart attack. I'm in the hospital. You can't fire someone who's medically incapacitated. The union won't allow it." "Your termination isn't based on your medical condition." Margaret opens the folder. "It's based on racial discrimination, abuse of authority, destruction of valid passenger documentation, and violation of civil rights protections, all of which occurred before your cardiac event, all of which are grounds for immediate dismissal under your contract's conduct clauses." She spreads documents across his hospital bed, passenger statements from witnesses who recorded Sterling's confrontation with the twins, the gate agent's testimony confirming the tickets were legitimate, video evidence showing the theatrical examination and deliberate destruction, 18 previous discrimination complaints spanning his 34-year career, 16 targeting passengers of color, all dismissed due to his seniority and union protection that finally ran out. "Those children's father owns SkyBridge Airlines," Margaret continues. "The codeshare partner we operate routes for, the company that generates 15% of our annual revenue, the relationship we cannot afford to lose because you couldn't see two black children as legitimate passengers. Mr. Clarke is demanding accountability and we're providing it. I was following security protocols," Sterling tries weakly. "The tickets looked suspicious. I was protecting the aircraft. I had reasonable concerns." "You had racism performing as reasonable concerns?" Margaret's voice goes hard. "You tore up legitimate boarding passes purchased by a man who owns an airline. You humiliated his 12-year-old children in front of witnesses. You created a public relations nightmare that's already cost us millions in lost bookings, and you did it because those children were black." "What about my pension?" Sterling asks, panic cutting through his medical fog. "I'm 3 months from full retirement benefits, 34 years of contributions. You can't take that away." "Your pension is forfeit," Margaret says without sympathy. "Termination for cause under conduct violations means you lose retirement benefits. That's explicitly stated in your contract. The racism you committed just cost you everything you worked for. Mr. Sterling, you have nothing left." The words hit Sterling like the cardiac arrest did, understanding flooding in that his life as he knew it ended the moment he tore those tickets, that the phone call from Julian Clarke wasn't just confrontation but execution, that consequences he avoided for 34 years finally arrived and brought total destruction. "I have a lawyer," Sterling says desperately. "The union will fight this. They'll protect me. They always have." The union reviewed the evidence and declined to contest your termination. Margaret delivers the final blow. "Even they couldn't defend 18 discrimination complaints and video evidence of you tearing up a child's tickets. You're alone in this. Nobody's coming to save you." She leaves the folder on his bed, walks out without another word, leaving Sterling alone with documentation of his own destruction, with passenger statements describing his cruelty, with witness testimony confirming his racism, with the particular hell of realizing you destroyed children's vacation and your own future in the same moment of prejudiced certainty. The twins spend their delayed spring break in Houston with Aunt Renee, Julian flying them on his private plane, the NASA tours and museum visits proceeding as planned but colored by trauma that doesn't pause for vacation, by nightmares Emma has about authority figures, by anxiety Ethan develops around airports, by the invisible scars that racism leaves even when justice eventually arrives. Aunt Renee holds her niece and nephew, pediatric surgeon who sees broken bones and injured organs but can't fix discrimination damage, who watches them flinch at loud voices and second-guess their right to occupy space, who understands that Sterling's punishment doesn't undo their pain, that consequences for him don't equal healing for them, that justice is necessary but insufficient. Western Regional issues public apology, announces policy changes, implements bias training, creates passenger advocacy position, Systemic reforms bought with the twins suffering, improvements that might protect future children but couldn't protect Ethan and Emma, change that matters but comes too late for the family that paid the price. Sterling is released from the hospital 5 days later, unemployed and unemployable, his pilot's license under investigation, his reputation destroyed, his retirement savings insufficient without his pension, 62 years old and starting over in economy he helped create through decades of discrimination that finally found target with resources to fight back, consequences arriving in full when they could no longer be avoided. 6 months after Captain Robert Sterling tore up 2 boarding passes and destroyed his own career in the process, he sits in a small apartment in Kansas City that's all he can afford without his pension, 62 years old and unemployable, applications to every airline rejected because word spreads fast in aviation about pilots terminated for discrimination, living on Social Security that doesn't start for 3 more years and savings that won't last that long. A local news station offers him interview, chance to tell his side, opportunity he accepts because he has nothing left to lose, because maybe confession brings some form of redemption even when it can't undo damage, because 6 months of isolation taught him that silence doesn't equal innocence and speaking might be the only accountability he can offer. I tore up those tickets because I couldn't believe 2 black children belonged in premium economy, Sterling admits to the camera, his face showing someone broken by consequences he never imagined facing. I saw their skin color and decided their documentation must be fraudulent. I saw their youth and decided they must be lying. I destroyed 2 kids' vacation and my own career because of racism I didn't even recognize in myself. The interviewer asks if he understands what he did wrong, if he's learned anything, if he has anything to say to the Clarke family, questions that Sterling answers with exhausted honesty born from having nothing left to protect. I have nothing now and I deserve nothing, Sterling says quietly. Those children were legitimate passengers with tickets their father purchased. They were polite and scared and I treated them like criminals. I used my authority to humiliate them because some part of me believed black children don't belong in spaces I considered reserved for white passengers. The admission doesn't undo trauma, doesn't restore innocence, doesn't erase nightmares that still wake Emma at 3 a.m. or anxiety that makes Ethan's hands shake during airport security, confession arriving too late to prevent damage, accountability that matters but can't heal. Ethan and Emma are 13 now, year older and fundamentally changed. Twins who used to love flying now approach airports with dread, who used to trust authority now question everyone in uniform, who used to believe excellence protects them now understand that racism targets regardless of achievement, childhood optimism replaced by vigilant awareness that safety is conditional, that dignity requires defending, that being black means constantly proving worthiness white people assume. They testify at a Senate hearing about discrimination in aviation, their story compelling Congress to pass stronger protections for unaccompanied minors, to mandate bias training for flight crew, to create oversight mechanisms that might prevent future Sterlings from destroying future children, legislation named the Clarke Act in their honor. Their suffering transformed into tools that protect others even as it continues affecting them. If you believe 2 children's trauma shouldn't be the price we pay for systemic change, if you think Sterling's punishment matters but doesn't equal justice when victims still suffer, subscribe because we're showing you that individual consequences don't fix institutional problems. Like this video if you understand that Ethan and Emma got justice because their father owns an airline, because their mother is a surgeon, because they had resources most black families lack when racism targets their children, because protection shouldn't require power and dignity shouldn't cost wealth and safety shouldn't depend on who your parents know. Julian uses his position to push industry-wide reforms, leveraging SkyBridge's partnerships to demand accountability, threatening to end codeshare agreements with carriers that tolerate discrimination, using economic pressure to force change that moral arguments couldn't achieve, capitalism accidentally serving justice because one family had leverage most don't possess. The twins fly occasionally now, always with parents, always with anxiety medication for Emma and grounding techniques for Ethan, always with the knowledge that Sterling exists somewhere diminished, always with scars invisible but real, always carrying the particular burden of being children who changed an industry by surviving its cruelty, who transformed personal trauma into public protection, who proved that racism costs perpetrators sometimes but always costs victims. Sterling lives his reduced life in Kansas City, working part-time at a bookstore because pilot jobs won't have him, paying rent from diminished savings, existing in the shadow of who he was, 62 years old with nothing ahead but regret and consequences that don't expire. Cautionary tale used in bias training worldwide, face attached to lessons about what racism costs when it finally meets accountability. Life ruined by prejudice he spent 34 years practicing, by phone call that revealed his victims weren't powerless, by twins who just wanted spring break but instead got discrimination and eventually got justice even though justice came too late to prevent the pain, too slow to protect their innocence, too expensive measured in trauma they'll carry forever. Imperfect resolution in imperfect world where winning means surviving with dignity scarred but not destroyed, where victory looks like legislation named after you because you suffered enough to matter, where justice arrives eventually but never quite enough.